on YouTube.
Perfect. And recording.
And so we're recording. We are live on YouTube.
Lovely.
Everything is up.
Wow.
This thing is just doing something. I don't know exactly what. We just let it do
Let it do what it does.
whatever it wants to do.
Sound is sounding good.
Sounds really good, right?
Yeah. Same place. Different couch than last time. Different texture. Same kind of wall.
Yes.
Almost.
Okay. So last time, what was last time the theme? What was resonating? What did we talk about? What was the essence?
We spoke a lot about. For me to put it in like a sentence about growing up, and it's taking this radical, if you want to call it radical, but this ownership of yourself, taking responsibility of yourself, your actions, emotions, and yada yada, all that stuff, and becoming yourself and being unapologetically you.
Yes.
Or me.
Yes.
So really hot topics, and I loved the talks about the layers of relating or relationships. I don't know if you call it relationships or relating.
The 4 pillars of relating, but just like relationship is just, I talked about that. I don't know anymore what relationship is, or in a way, except it's defined.
Yeah, and the 3 types of masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
Super good talk. It's a lot going on in the world about this masculinity thing also, and spirituality combined with dudes, and we can use spirituality as some kind of protection to not be taking ownership, instead of throwing some words and telling people to fuck off in a nice way or go do some work.
Because I'm live, I just pick my teeth.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love the sound when you pick your teeth.
Can you hear?
Yeah. I can do that. I really do that.
I mean, the funny thing is, this raw. It's uncut. It's real, and it's human. So we had a conversation 2 weeks back of where I just idiotically deleted the file, and then I couldn't recover it. And we talked about co-regulation, codependency, different dynamics in relationship, and you asked if we can pick that up again.
Yeah, I wanted to pick that up again because you fucked it up, and I think people need to hear it, and I need to hear it more.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some more questions coming in about that from my side, and not only talk about this codependency relating or relationship and this nervous system regulating in partnership, but also with kids and parents, how it works and what you bring with you to your adulthood from what you learn and so on. I think those topics were super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm gonna try to make a new podcast together with you. Usually I do whatever comes up, but now we're gonna try to be like rewind and remember what we spoke about.
Maybe we start from what your memory still is, and where do you have the desire to dig deeper in, and just like having a refresh.
Before we do that, do you have any kind of input, feedback, or any thoughts that came up when we talked last time?
When it was about being unapologetically me. No, I think there was a really round, good, deep conversation that we had, and I like what you have done with it, with Opus clips and having the shorts with it, and I actually took it on. I just uploaded an interview that I had 2 days later with a friend and colleague, with Naeem, about sexual de-armoring, and he was just full on fire, and I actually did the same thing, uploaded on Opus, and then I just like shared it to Instagram.
Isn't it wonderful?
It's just
non-paid ad right now.
It's so
Maybe they
good.
want to pay us for this.
It's so fantastic.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
so
it.
nice.
So I give it to you.
Yeah, I noticed one thing. I noticed how much I need voice activating and the armoring because my voice. I've been thinking about it last like 10 episodes I've done. It's been like this. I'm talk like this, and I like go like this.
Hmm.
I'm not being like something has changed the last couple of days. It's becoming more and more like I want to talk. Like yes, it's okay that you hear me.
Hmm.
I don't need to be quiet and
Hmm.
talk quiet. So that also changed after we talked in the last
Mm.
podcast. So that was cool.
Oh, cool when I have that impact on you, just like through talking. Just like I
Oh,
hope there are many people out there having a similar experiences
I
just
think
through listening.
I think you have. I think you have, and I'm very happy for that. So thank you.
Mm, okay.
Okay, so going back to the codependent relating in relationships, we talked about it because I felt like there is something maybe you can romanticize things and say like yeah we do fill each other's empty spots or we're perfect together when we're together we're whole
Hmm.
and that makes us like a strong team. But for me it's been looking more like fuck yeah I love this I love you I love being with you but instead of looking at like yeah this is romantic I started to look at things or you can see it almost in any relationship that is this a crutch that I need from you in order to feel more whole or feel more secure about myself or have more self-confidence or being able to be with my kids. Uh, so started to look at those things as crutches and you were talking about these crutches too. Like when you start identifying them, things start to happen maybe.
Yeah, the crutches, and we just talked about that. This is nothing negative or wrong.
No.
We have all kind of different survival mechanisms and strategies to belong and to be loved and to fit in, and and these crutches have been over a lifetime becoming an ally and a superpower in a way that we can make use of. So we don't want to just like kick them off and make them wrong and trying to get rid of them. It's just like no, we just want to make an empowered choice when we need them. So when we actually accessing them, or when we don't need them, and then not having anything you can fall back on, and then the crutch is the crutch. So and but at one point, if you can walk on your own, you don't need the crutch anymore. But you don't need to break it. You can put it with gratitude in the corner, and whenever you need it, you put it back on. So from this perspective, I just would like to have a look on when we relate how we using, sometimes misusing each other as these crutches, and then giving our power away to somebody else's uh, being or way of um, uh, um, relating. And you said one word just like a few sentences back about romance and romantic romanticize a relationship in a way. And this is really an interesting dynamic, and I was looking into that when it comes to relationship, and we just talked about that when we had breakfast, that uh, in 2010 or so, when I said, I was like, I don't want to have a relationship because I don't know what relationship is. It's just the concept of words that is being filled up from different angles and direction with different values, and then we expect the other person to live up to our values of how we think relationships should be, what we got from our parents or from friends or somewhere else, read it in books, and then if we project it on our partner and our partner's not living up to this expectation, we literally create a separation rather than a relationship. So from this perspective, when I stopped having relationship, I actually realized that a romantic relationship is something that I was after my entire life, and then this feeling of what is romance. So the sensation of beauty and nice candles and nice music, and it's always happy ever after in this way. So first of all, I just would like to put, I like beauty, and I want to put beauty on the side because I just want to have beauty environment or beautiful experiences that I define as beautiful. But the structure or the essence of a romantic relationship comes from, the word romantic comes from Rome or Roman, and that's literally the ancient structure of how to relate together, that there is a marriage, it's one person with another person, is happy ever after, is till death takes us apart, is this thing when you just look that back and historically look that up. Romance is the bind of land to people who getting married and getting a piece of land from the church. That literally the land is literally combined to under the umbrella of the church married people.
Okay, that sounds very practical and non-romantic.
It's non-romantic. It's non-romantic at all.
They're kind of forced.
It's forced, and this is how land got divided and just cut in pieces and then given to, people that they literally are in the community of church, that they're as well.
Yeah, the chosen people as well that are in the community, not the other ones who maybe not align with the same thoughts or ideologies and so on.
Yes, so this is the essence, the roots of romance, but then it just got through, Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse and all this kind of Cinderella syndrome kind of.
But that's nice romance. It's the storytelling.
It's a story. Romance is a story in a certain way, and it always ends in the prince gets the princess and they live happy ever after, and the bad witch and the evil people, they are finally in hell or something. But this concept of romance, romantic relationship, or relationship, the way how I have no idea what it is, it's just gone. What is a relationship? I don't know what a relationship is, so I need to define it for myself if I want to relate with somebody else, how I want that relationship to be in alignment with my values and the values of the other person.
Yeah, so so first of all, the thing with the romance part, what happened there? Like you just figured out like there's no romance, there's only a story.
Yeah, it just died in me. It was just gone.
So how do you, if we use the old world romantic, how are you romantic today?
Well,
because we don't want you to look squarey.
Yeah.
Because you are not squarey. You're a very humble and nice guy.
If I look, thank you, I take that as a compliment. When I look into this thing of what romance is to me, essentially as an energetic, it's something beautiful. For example, when you think of a romantic candlelight dinner, it's like, I don't know why this is actually romantic. I don't know by definition, but it's nice. I just like
feels good.
It feels good. Have a nice environment. Have some candles, a good glass of wine,
nice gestures,
fire, nice music. You're present with the person. You relate. You engage. You have a conversation. I love that. I love, having a romantic evening. Means, just let's have quality time together. Have nice music. It's warm. Having a bath. Just having a nice conversation, being in proximity and intimate and sharing feelings, and that is beautiful. But I don't know what makes it romantic. It's a concept and a structure that we put on a word.
I would say like it's loving in some way.
Yeah.
Then if going back to the word romantic, well, that's not. If we compare it to the real romantic stuff, that's not the same. So let's keep that apart then. Keep it loving.
Yeah, I mean that said, I love it. Keeping it loving. I love beauty. I love niceness. I like it warm and silky and smooth and pleasant. It's just comforting. I like that, and I prefer that. Again, I don't need to be spartanic in a cold kind of edgy room where I just like try to figure out how I can just like get a turn on. This is not the idea behind it, but the conceptualizing of romance and relationship. That when this is gone, it's gone. You can't recreate it.
No, because it's a concept. It's like the concept of being together, like we are in a relationship, partnership. It's like, okay, and then when you become friends, what happens then? What is that? That is also a concept, and the concept brings in a lot of conditioning. So if I talk about relationship, I'm together with someone. That's my view. Like, it differs from yours because I have my conditionings, I have my patterns, I have my beliefs, and then I have my partner who has the same, and then we're gonna somehow try to be together. Use that concept. We are together. What does that mean? Holy shit, we are together, but what does it mean? Like, but let's run along with it. So in real time, we try to go along with the concept of being together, and try to find each other's values, maybe, or find out like what does that mean to you by maybe having arguments, having fights, having nice discussions. So instead of that, maybe just leave it to be, just be. Can we just be and see what? Do we need to call it something all the time? I think that is the most like essential part. Do we need to call things something all the time? Can we just be?
And who for, right?
Exactly.
It's a little bit like as if you just need to go out with a little not a shield, the German word, and shield, like
sign.
A sign, just like with the sign that's written on "we fuck."
Exactly, or we're together, and that means this.
Right.
Okay, so if I'm at the bar with her, you don't talk to her because we're together. But okay, she's another opinion. You can't talk to me when we are together. Oh fuck! And so it's never synchronized. So stop fucking around with the word and concept. Yeah. So getting back to the codependency part, how many people do you think, like super roughly, are living codependently? And it's not a bad thing. It's just it can be more and it can be less, which is of course, you can have healthy ways of being dependent, codependent. I think maybe. Now you're looking at me weirdly.
I am just weird. I had a conversation just with DN the other day and asked me, hey, can you just tell me that I'm not normal? And that says, you are definitely not normal.
Good. What is that?
Yeah, being normal, I don't know what being normal is. I think status quo, being put in that box, how to behave and how to engage, how to relate, how to work, how to do everything how you should do to be a good.
We're grasping for shit. Bullshit illusions. We're grasping for nothing and it hurts. Fuck that.
I was just talking as well with another a friend and coach, and he said just like, well, what you bring is just like help men to unchain their conditioning of how they have to be and should be in a way. So coming back to this piece of codependency.
That is being codependent, like you said, how you should be, how you should act, how you should take care. That is also codependency if you are in a relationship, right?
Yeah, I mean, being in relationship and codependent means that I only do something in relationship to how my partner feels about it. Yeah, so I'm whatever I do, say, plan, I just have a conversation with my partner first and see what my partner does. What is literally, I think in a good functional relationship, I get that, if you're just making plans where somebody is included or you just want to be inclusive with your partner, then of course you consider everything that you're doing. Just like, hey, I have this and that plan, you want to have a conversation about that. But if you don't do that and you just break the code of ethics or something like that, and then the relationship is in trouble. It's just like, I don't think so. As long as something is related to expectation and assumption and fulfilling of these expectations and assumptions, it's never a free relationship. It's a codependent relationship. And I think I said that the other day. So a codependent relationship is a relationship that we most likely have seen in our past, how our parents have been related when we actually learned about relationship. Seeing how parents relate or how they don't relate, what they do or what they don't do, and we're just creating our concept out of relationship, out of that. And most of the time, I said, when we're going onto this level of the supermarket or the shopping zone, where we're just trying to find different partners and trying to figure stuff out, what works well to some degree, but then on one point you just want to break free and want to go into your, I just need to get that a little lower here. So we just want to break free and want to have a different set of values, the way how we want to relate. And then we just recognize, well, I don't know how to do that, because all I know is just like from my past and from my parents, and that didn't work out very well. So this codependency is when I just break that down into the structure of our nervous system and how the nervous system works. This what was making it really obvious and transparent for me is, so when we grow up as as an infant, and we have a caregiver or a mother or whoever that is, cannot self-regulate. So our caregiver has no option and opportunities to, that needs to be definitely go a little bit further down. Anyway, this does its thing now. Anyway, so that when we have a caregiver who is not capable of self-regulating, and they're needing us or somebody else to regulate when they are dysregulated.
So, by saying that, what does it mean to not be regulated?
Not being regulated, when you're regulated, you are in a neurological homeostasis. So you feel relaxed, you feel
balanced,
contentment, you feel like everything is good and easy and in flow. On the spectrum of survival, you are on a thriving side. You're just relaxed, all is good, nothing is just threatening you. And when you're dysregulated, it's like you're constantly stressed. It's like, oh my God, what's tomorrow and what's going on? So your nervous system is in a place of dis-ease. So it's dysregulated. And most people using crutches to substitute, to feel better about themselves.
What could those crutches be?
For example, I need my partner to feel better about myself, and I need somebody else to regulate that I feel better. Without my partner, I feel anxious all the time.
Or kids?
Or kids, for example.
So kids take a lot of that stuff.
So when you had parents who have not managed to self-regulate from an empowered place, and they always have used you or their partner, and you have learned that that's a relationship model that you carry and take into your life, into your relationship.
Yeah.
So when you are in a relationship with somebody else and you don't know how to self-regulate, and you have learned that in your nervous system because your mom did that and your dad did that, and this is how you have done that, and you cannot self-regulate when you are dysregulated, when you're stressed or something is going on, you need your partner to be better.
So when you start regulating, it means that you need your partner to feel better.
Yeah.
Is that how you start to regulate yourself in a non-healthy way?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a non-healthy way when you do that, but it's a very limited and dependent way. It's a codependent way. So you are codependent on the other person to regulate. In the natural way of relating, it happens anyway. So we are so-called pair bonders. So that means we hanging out in tribes, in groups, and this gives us stability, who we are and how we relate and how we engage in this environment with other people. And if you're not capable of being on your own because you just constantly need this people around you to feel better about yourself, then you're literally constantly dysregulated and you're dependent on somebody else to brings you back in that place. So
So that is by getting some kind of validation, as getting some kind of like for instance, take the kid. If you have a child and you are dysregulated, and in what ways do you co-regulate with your kid in that case? Could you give me like an example?
yeah, for example, if my parents, my mother, for example, when my parents got divorced, my mother was constant. She was sitting there crying. She was devastated and was just like so bad. And I remember I was around this my sad mother all the time, and I've made myself responsible that she is feeling better. And then on one point, I was start caring for her, so doing the stuff that she feels better. So, but on one point, and this is where I got there's an emotional abusive structure behind that. On one point, I don't know how old I was, 7, 8, 9. I was just already very tall, so I was not that much smaller than she was. So we were going out and doing a walk, and I have as well 2 siblings, same age-ish. And I remember that I was the one who always was going with her on the walk. So she was actually taking me on these walks. And on one walk, she putting her hand around my shoulder, what was kind of nice. But then she said, okay, if people would see us, they would think we are a couple.
Wow, okay.
So on this point,
how old were you?
I don't know, maybe 10 or something like that, or 9. I can't really remember. And so that I felt myself being responsible because I was the replacement for my father. So she literally emotionally took me on this replacement, where she has regulated herself through using me in proximity as a replacement for my father or for her for a partner. This said, this is a model that I have taken on and inherit, and I take through life and apply that, or have applied that for many years in my relationships.
So what happens in your or what had happened in your relationships when you went into that pattern? You did the same for your girlfriends as you did for your mother. You took care of them. You took responsibility
I am responsible when they feel bad. That what I do make them feel better. And if they feel bad, and I can make them feel better, I am responsible for that they feel bad. And if they feel bad, I'm responsible in the first place that they feel bad.
Fuck, that's a deep hole.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, it took me years to dig that out and became aware of that. How many men and how many people out there are in this kind of misery, in this tumult? And I think you asked the question when you were about to ask the question, how many are out there suffering from that? And I see this 80-20 equation that you have, and so that means you need to do 80% of work that you have 20% of benefit. If you don't do the 80%, the 20% will not work. And this 80-20 equation is just everywhere in life. And I think probably 80% of all people, of all couples, of all people who relating in that kind of misery. And I'm pretty sure that this is probably the number.
You might be right, because when I look around, I see the same kind of behavior patterns too. It's like it looks almost the same everywhere, just difference in scenarios and how they're behaving. But it's it's sad, because you see the man, he looks pretty miserable. Looks like somebody has cut off the balls. And by having balls, you don't need to be an asshole. It's just that you see, it's almost looking at some kind of a hunchback who tries to make the woman feel safe when he's totally not safe. He doesn't even want to speak up, so he's not safe with himself. And the woman is carrying around, like, thinking she has a safe man, and she's not safe either, so no one's really safe. That means like no one's regulated in that sense. So that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. I have one question for you about this. Yeah, what happens in the body when, for instance, take the kid who starts to co-regulate with the mother? What happens with the body?
Yeah, so an interesting thing about the nervous system, so I just stick my teeth into the polyvagal theory. Stephen Porges' work was absolutely fascinating. And the function of the nervous system, specifically of the ventral vagus nerve or the social engagement system, has one kind of built-in feature that it always tries to go into the direction of safety and ease again. So whenever we are in dis-ease or in dysregulation, the nervous system tend to create a structure that we are relaxed and functional again. Yeah, so it's an autonomic nervous system, so to say. So it just builds itself back.
I wonder who programmed that. That's super cool thing.
It's actually cool, right? I like it how it works. So a kid that is dysregulated is probably trying to do everything to go back in regulation. And I think this is in early childhood. This is where kind of when you have a caregiver who is not really aware of what's going on, and then being used kind of blackmailing. So if you're not doing this or if you're doing this, then mommy will be really sad or dad will be really angry. So it's kind of blackmailing, conditioning, programming behavior, the way how you want to have the outcome. It's just you just literally train little monkeys and little dogs to become functional in your dysfunction.
Exactly. So what happens with the bodies then? Their nervous system starts to, it runs kind of, because it has to be running quite wild after a while. If you are co-regulating with your parent every day, then your system must be kind of screwed up after a while.
Yeah, I think that kids they create on one point of dis-ease like a disease. Yeah, they get sick. There's so many kids out there who are having ADHD, who have not a really functional, emotional, intimate relationship with their caregivers, because there were never ever from the beginning on the eye contact, and when you have a mother who is capable of total self-regulation, doesn't need the child to co-regulate, that you have the role model of somebody can co-regulate, that you learn you can co-regulate yourself, that you're not dependent or codependent on each other to regulate each other. This is very rare. I see that very, very little. What I see these days is you have from the beginning on, even when there's breastfeeding or any other connections, just like child here in that arm and on the other hand the handy. I see parents with a kinderwagen where the child is just like trying to make connection, and mother and father just like kinderwagen, and then
Yeah.
Here where I live, just like a dad and mother with small kids, just like kid is just like trying to make connection and just like play, don't know what play is because nobody shows in the way. Parent sits on the bank with a phone, and this is what children these days learn, and this is it's a quarter of a century that we just have phones and iPads and computers and all that kind of stuff. But I think this is what most kids do to regulate themselves, creating this attention span, because they're so hooked on the media. They have their phone, they have their iPads, they have their gadgets, and they're gone. They're out of connection.
Yeah.
There is the eye contact. There is this learning to be with another being, and in the connection with another human being, to still being capable of self-regulating yourself. You don't make yourself dependent on what's going on the other side. Either there's a storm coming or there's completely ease. You have full access to your neurological functionality and you can regulate yourself even if there's, a dysregulation coming towards you and you notice, okay, this person freaks me out, this person is already freaked out, and if I'm just like staying to hang out with that person, I will be dysregulated. I can only handle myself to a certain degree, and then I either need to leave or I just need to just like have some self-regulating action going on. And this is where I think most kids have no tools, they have no capacity. This is just substitution, and they're just like withdrawing, and they're gone. The entire kind of the depth of emotional proximity and emotional fluency is just not existing in most kids.
No, I can see that too. I have kids, and I see that a lot. Does this have something to do with hypersexuality?
I think to a degree
Feels like it's something.
it's part of a self-regulating dynamic, but in form of substitution. And I could dive into that as well. I just process my own little kind of lifelong addiction to being turned on. And for example, and I just dig that out. I say a few sentences about that. When I was when I was writing the book Orgasmic Blueprint, I was just in Spain and I was pondering about the structure of self-regulation and co-regulation. And I had an insight that, and my mom told me that somehow, somewhere along the line, that she said that she got turned on or she got horny or she got aroused when she was breastfeeding. And I've heard that from some women said just like, yeah, breastfeeding is absolutely devastating, it's painful in the beginning, but then at one point, just like, it can be extremely pleasant.
Releases some kind of
so
chemical.
There's a lot of neurotransmitter like dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin and all that kind of stuff that I have drunk with the milk when she was breastfeeding me. And the situation was with my mom that my brother is just a little bit older than me, was an early bird, and she could not breastfeed because he was in hospital, and then she just went home and her milk kind of didn't came, and I don't know how my parents managed that, but my mom got pregnant again after 2 months. What breastfeeding is actually on a neurological level responsible for inhibiting the next fertilization. So when you breastfeed, there's a lot of neurotransmitter that doesn't start the ovulation again. So therefore, anyway, my mom got pregnant after my brother got born 2 months later, and I was like, yeah, universe, just like, yeah, in a nice, pretty pre-stretched womb, and I come in there, and just like 5 months without being recognized as being pregnant, and then the big shock, just like, oh my god, another one. And they were young, 19 or something like that.
Okay.
Super young. And so I have that kind of in my system in a way, but then the structure is I'm being born, and my mom said just like, now finally she could do all that stuff that she couldn't do with my brother, who was, when I got born, he was not even a year old. So he was under a year, so there was a lot of grandparents around and other people, neighbors taking care, and my father was just about, I don't know, he was about military kind of thing. I don't know exactly what the story was. Anyway, she was breastfeeding me from the first 5-6 months, and I have gotten all this neurotransmitter with the milk before my brain got developed into a personality structure. So I had this inside of horniness and arousal before I actually could speak and think. And so it's like the goldfish swimming in water doesn't know what water is. Just like I had no idea what it was. This is my this is my life essence from from after being born. Just like, well, this, the fulfillment of hunger and horniness is just like my life essence in a way. Made me an addict probably from the beginning on to this substance. What I wouldn't say is really an addiction, because addiction came later into the equation of psychology in the 60s or 70s. Became aware of that the substitution of the essence in a way, so like coffee, alcohol, nicotine, drugs, and so on. So that the life force energy that we get in is not an addiction, it's just our nature of remembering our connection to this unified consciousness, the divine, that we just experience in the womb in the first place, and then we're just trying to rebuild it our entire life. And then we're just taking every crutch and every substitution that we can get to get this bridge into this unified consciousness.
And that could be, for us men, the pussy.
That could be for us men the pussy, to go back into this field, what we literally have, and I can tap into that.
That is very interesting.
In a second. But what that has done to me and to many other men, I guess, is a hypersexual activity in a way. What is literally our nature. What is nothing wrong or bad. I think in terms of nature, I think it is created and built that way, that we have a really high drive of our sexuality, what literally makes sure that our species survives. So I think it's part of the package. So there's nothing wrong or bad or finger pointing. This is just like abuse and negative and needs healing and trauma. None of this. But more in a way of just like, well, I have not been aware of that till now. I just became aware of that. Just like, yeah, probably I've been hypersexual and arousal, horniness addict my entire life. And this is now just like in a way of very relaxing while I see certain behavior in this regard of. So I've been using my horniness and this energy for self-regulation my entire life.
Okay.
Yeah.
With yourself, with others.
With myself, so or with
that's pretty common. I think that is very common too.
It's very common, yeah.
Especially the sex part with yourself and others.
Yeah.
But going back to the womb and the vagina, like I've had that in like plant medicine ceremonies many times, about seeing like the vagina and me going in there. I've been questioning like a lot about this, like what's the drive for the pussy or the vagina? Like, am I sexualizing women now? Has it gone so far that I sexualize them because there's so much around that area? So I've been questioning, like, what is this? What's the drive? And it shows me, or the plant medicine which I use has shown me, like, you want to get up to the womb. And I'm like, what? Is that a safe zone, or what am I looking for here?
This is so interesting, and I've said that on several equations. And if anybody's watching that, please throw some stones on me if you need to.
Okay.
But to say it from that perspective, and I really highly acknowledge and honor masculinity and manhood and all that. But I have to say, from the neurological wiring, women are more advanced than men. So I call women human 2.0, and we're lucky we go to 1.5 if we evolve.
Wow, okay.
Strong. But what that means is we are not capable of going to this 2.0, except with an exception that when men develop a strong homosexual dynamic, what is literally wanting to be penetrated anally in a way, what has literally to do with the nervous system functionality. And I've said that on another point, and this is just really where I said just I said that to women: don't get penetrated from a man who has not been penetrated himself.
Okay, why?
And then she said just like, are you just comparing the woman's womb with a man's asshole? And just like, well, if you want to see it that way, so she got totally offended. So was one of these, goddesses who just
What
like.
did you mean?
Well, what I mean is just, when I say that is that opens up a complete vast body of knowledge behind that. So women's sexual organs, specifically the womb. I'm not talking about the vulva, the outside, the external part of the pussy. I'm talking about the womb and the cervix, the womb, the core, has a neurological connection through the vagus nerve, through the ventral vagus nerve. So it's like a bipolar processor constantly working between the brain and the womb, the connection to nature. It's life performing, life giving, life creating. And we don't have this connection through our genitals.
Not at all.
We have zero connection from the ventral vagus nerve, the 10th cranial nerve, to our genitals. We don't have that.
Okay.
But there are to the anus. There's an inner and an outer sphincter ring.
Yeah.
They are connected to the parasympathetic and sympathetic. So that means men who are being penetrated, they have the capability of relaxing both parts of the nervous system through the anal stimulation and prostate activation simultaneously. So there's some activation, and the there's after the 10th week when the embryo is being formed, and then this chromosomes comes along the way, and one is just like, okay, genitals inside, genitals outside. Genitals inside creating a womb, and genitals outside creating balls and the other stuff. But all organs, they have an equivalent in both bodies. The balls are literally the ovaries, and the penis itself is the clitoris, and the clitoris walls that go inside. And the womb in itself is part of the copper gland that is related to the prostate in the man's body. And there is a part of the nerve that is dormant of the vagus nerve activity on that copper gland.
In the guy?
In the guy's body.
So you could stimulate that?
It's getting reactivated, as far as I can tell. So there are some scientific researchers around that. People who are paraphyletic, so people who are in a wheelchair.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Not Paralympic.
No, paraphyletic. But people who have kind of a cut in their spine and can't walk anymore, so that the lower part of the body.
I've never heard that word, but we can check it out.
We can check it out. Sorry, das like eine deutsche Wortfindungsstörung.
All right.
All right. So so they figured out that people who are in a wheelchair, who have a cut on their spine, they have still the capability of having orgasms. Women in the womb and men anally. Yeah. And that only works because through this connection. However, that said, long story short, to come back to this thing, when your question, what is this longing of guys into pussy? What's the pussy hunt behind it?
Exactly.
Men and women, we all got born through pussy. And women who got born through pussy, who have a pussy, have a different relationship to their sexual organ because this is where they're from. It's a different thing. But we boys, we guys, we have a complete different story. We don't have a uni.
No.
And we always just like, well, this is where we're from, and what is it? And I don't have that. I have something different here.
So we're looking for something that we had, in a way.
In a way, most of us, got kind of had a necklace, a pussy around the neck on one point in our life. But the thing is, and that's really, really fascinating when you look deeper into that, from Gestalt therapy, for example, so from Fritz Perls, he said at one point, the feeling of unified consciousness, of oneness, is the first time in the belly when we're there.
Are we looking for oneness when we're looking for
oneness? Wait a second.
Did I?
No. It's really interesting, and I hope people watching that can follow the dynamics. So the thing is, when we are in our mother's womb, the universe is just around us. just like, well, this is everything. This oneness, completely cosmos. There's something happening, sound and light and stuff, and somebody's doing something, poking, and then there's somewhere something's coming in sometimes, and I don't know. But
Daddy!
Daddy! So, but then we are born as the first separation from this unified consciousness.
Oh.
And we trying, and this is what's being said in Gestalt therapy from Fritz Perls, and then the rest of our life we try to get this unified consciousness back. And as women develop this connection to their womb and the connection that to their internal experience, as long they're not really totally demasculated in the patriarchy or whatever the story is around that. But it's just like more the natural way for women, the connection to nature and to the roots, birth and death in a way. And specifically when it comes to sexuality, that women have through this vagus connection of the womb, they have like the entire, built-in mechanism is there, and when the penis comes inside, it literally bridges this connection to the womb through eye contact.
How do you mean?
So the heart-womb connection through eye contact in lovemaking is literally rebuilt, and the sensation of the unified field of consciousness, the oneness, the merging into oneness happens through the woman's body, through the womb, heart, brain connection.
Yeah.
And we, when we're lucky and diving in that field, we're getting a ride. We're getting a ride in the spaceship of the woman's body.
Okay, so we get to enter the palace, the oneness.
Right, we just get to enter the
Cosmos.
palace, the cosmos,
What the fuck are we then, the men? Are we just monkeys traveling looking for pussy? Like, or cosmos?
Well, I mean, just like if you are on a level of 1.5 in this way, just like you just give gratitude and honor and love.
Yeah, that's what I do. But still, it sounds like we're missing something.
Well,
if we're going on a spaceship looking for that womb.
Yeah, I think what we men do differently is we are more purpose driven. We are creating. We developing. We inventing shit.
A lot of shit.
We are what's not definitely good in any regard, but
is that a substitute for not getting the womb?
Maybe it is. I don't know. When you get on one point the cosmic joke, then you see it's just all a big kind of blur of a funny kind of.
Yeah, like nothing made sense, guys.
Nothing made sense anyway. But in the bigger picture, this connection, the womb connection, allows us just like to enter back the field. And I've been so many times in oneness with my partner, and it's too vast to remember. You have a kind of a residue of a memory. It feels extremely good, right? What literally is the entire sexual energy behind that? Because that's the reason why we make more of us. Because it's not an addiction, but it's every
driver.
Other addiction is a substitution of that very behavior in the sex reward structure, and as I said, that as a horniness addict, and just like doing that my entire life, I kind of wonder what the self-realization through that is not being needy anymore, of need to fill up that cup.
Exactly. Is that the womb cup or the horniness cup?
Yeah, the infant hunt after pussy.
After pussy that might be connected to the womb, to the oneness.
Yeah.
So you might be. Maybe we need to find the oneness in somewhere else than the womb and the pussy.
Yes, there are different structures, and I stick my nose in wherever I could. Advaita Vedanta, so Ramana Maharishi's kind of who am I, the pathway, of the I doesn't exist, and it's just a construct in the brain, and so satsang, I just traveled for years and just met so many people in there. And what I've seen is that specifically in that as a spiritual tradition in a way, people who have not really liberated their sexuality, there's something off. And I think as a fully integrated human being, spiritually, kind of, with all this awareness into oneness, the sexual component needs to be liberated utterly, radically, completely free.
What does that mean?
That means that you are not a hunt pussy, you're not addicted to any gratification, you're not climaxing based on you need to reproduce every day, sometimes twice.
3, 4.
Or 3, 4, and whenever the beast comes through and just wants to run the show, just like say, hey, welcome, let's see what the show is today, but you're not running the show. This is a co-creation of reality and life, and I'm not dependent on, I don't need to have it, but I don't need to suppress it either.
No, the drive is pretty strong. You can't suppress it. You're gonna go insane. You need to find an outlet, like something creative maybe. I don't know.
Or a purpose.
Or a purpose,
Yeah.
yeah. The purpose of finding oneness. That's your...
The purpose of finding oneness. I don't know, we just actually... I think we just did a kind of big loop from that question about co-regulation, self-regulation.
Yeah, I was gonna come back to that. This was a super good side way. But how do you start to self-regulate then?
Well, this is an interesting thing that most people who have not learned to self-regulate, they have no access to it, because neurologically they don't have any pathways activated. And luckily enough, there is this structure existing in the nervous system that we can rebuild different pathways, and we can literally through continuous action rewire our nervous system. And for example, when I just said this thing about being in action and feeling, this is one of the key components that I say, just like, well, as long as you have access to that, because you release oxytocin in your central brain, that is inhibiting the release of cortisol and adrenaline, and you just relax, and this is part of self-regulation. Being internally in connection with your breath, with the impulse of inhaling and exhaling double the amount of inhales is a self-regulating structure, is a self-regulating dynamic. Then there are different other pieces. One of them called one guy, Stanley Rosenberg. I think he died. I don't know, maybe he's still alive. I just met him, I don't know, 5 years back or so, where he was.
I hope he's alive.
Yeah, I mean, he has written a really profound book, The Healing Power of the Vagus Nerve. There's a foreword from Stephen Porges in there, so I just needed to meet him and have a conversation.
Cool.
And he has a certain structure, and he asked me, so open up your mouth and say, oh, and what your frenulum is doing, normally when you regulate it, it's in the middle and vibrating.
Yeah.
But when you dysregulate it, it goes to this side of the part. I don't know if it goes to the regulated or dysregulated part of the neck. So when you see that and somebody has the frenulum going to one side, this is a part of a dysregulation of the vagus nerve that runs here through your
both sides of the neck.
Both sides of the neck, what is connected as well to your middle ear muscle and to your eyes, and the entire structure around that. Anyway, so there's a self-regulating structure is when you feel you're dysregulated and your nervous system is kind of amped up in a way, and you put your head to that side where it's dysregulated, and you just really get over to this part, and on one point you just you do a sigh, and that sigh is a sign of regulation.
Yeah.
And then you do that on the other side, and you wait for this kind of.
I have that thing with the eyes. when I have that, when I try to self-regulate too, I do it with the eyes. I stare as much as I can to the right until I get that sigh or I get that yawn.
Yeah, yeah. It's something as well. So there is this muscle group. They are called orbicularis oculi. I love to throw.
Connected. It's the only thing that's connected outside your brain.
Yeah, it's connected to a different part on the backside of your head where you have the possibility to regulate with your eyes these muscle groups if you know how to do it. It is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So this is another part of self-regulation. Going in nature is always self-regulating for me. Walking barefoot on the earth is self-regulating for me.
Singing could be.
Singing is a good way of self-regulating. Doing a good yoga set is a good self-regulation.
Dopamine detox is kind of a good way to start also.
Dopamine detox, absolutely a good thing to do.
Together with the boredom that comes out of being kind of ordinary, that's regulating too. You know, when you're not into doing stuff all the time, that could also be regulating as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that, you know, everything that is self-regulating for people who can't self-regulate, who are dopamine driven, who have the pathway of satisfaction in their nervous system, who are constantly on that M, they experience the gap between contentment and satisfaction as boredom.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Nothing to do here. This sucks.
Yeah.
I'm nervous.
I don't want to hear that. Just go away with that shit.
Exactly.
And it's an interesting thing that so self-regulating or doing self-regulation with people who are constantly on a substitution, so on the satisfactory pathway, and they constantly need this high. Whenever they come to that place of in the nervous system it calls immobilization, when you're safe. So where you know in yoga this shavasana, you just lay down and just like just relax in a way. They have an association with something lethal happening, because most people who have this hyper activity, who have this dysregulation constantly going on, they have somewhere in their past an experience where immobilization means death.
I have that shit.
Yeah.
I have that stuff when I go to sleep. It's like as soon as I get to like this going to sleep level, it's like wake up, something's happening, and then again, boom, and I can do that so many times before I go to sleep.
Yeah. So this part of dysregulation is it's devastating.
It is, but you can practice by regulating your nervous system.
I mean it's you know step by step. You know you can't rewire this nervous system just like that at once. It's just like
it needs to trust you and your head, because your mind and your thoughts are fucking the nervous system up. So you need to be skillful with the thinking, what you allow your thoughts, what thoughts you actually allow to access your body. That's like you need to be responsible for what you're thinking, because that's gonna have an impact on your body and your nervous system.
Big time.
Yeah.
So I just want to go back to the self-regulation, co-regulation, and dysregulation, just like the sentence, you know, that I can get it out of my system. So that people who cannot self-regulate, they need somebody else to co-regulate. And you can learn self-regulation, that you don't need somebody else to co-regulate. But it means when you can self-regulate, you can as well co-regulate, but you're not dependent, you're not codependent on somebody else to regulate yourself. So if people have not learned to self-regulate, they most likely need somebody else to co-regulate. What is this level of codependency to somebody else? Mostly happening in relationship, because this is what most people know from the past, from their parents.
Mm. And that is by getting the validation or some kind of assurance or whatever needs to be filled in that person. That is the co-regulation part.
Yeah.
So you were talking something about mirror neurons too earlier, not today, but when we spoke off camera. Like we have mirror neurons that mirror the other person's, is it nervous system or mood or what?
I think so the mirror neurons, they fire all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're here all the time, and but most people are not capable of perceiving the information. And that said is when you have a constant dysregulated nervous system and you are not sensitive enough to look over your own plate, see what is outside, so that you're constantly busy with just like, oh my god, what am I doing next to get my kind of fix or something like that, that there is not many capacity to create empathy and compassion, what is the key structure of being sensitive enough to literally be aware of mirror neurons. And that's really fascinating, you know, when we just capable of feeling and sensing and getting more into subtler realms of our perception. And not only our perception, as well our neuroception, we are capable of picking up cues in people's environment. Not only that we're picking up cues visually, we're picking up cues energetically, emotionally. And this cues, this is what I would say, they're mostly mirror neurons. So neurons that wire together, fire together, or fire together, wire together in this thing. And I just find it fascinating in quantum physics when you have entanglement, that you have, you know, two neurons are connected to each other. They're both the same energetic charge, and if you would separate them and you put them somewhere in different areas of the Earth or universe or somewhere else, and one is shifting, the other one is shifting as well. So therefore, when you have people who are really in connection with each other, not dependency, but in really connection, and you know, just like I was just thinking of you, and then the phone rings, something like that, or just like you know, any other instances happening. You just walk, you just think about a person, and I have that in Bali tons. Thinking about a person I need to meet who has such and such in common. I just want to do is go somewhere in a cafe or sit somewhere, and then you just start a conversation, and all of a sudden this person is there.
Yeah.
I had
spooky action at a distance.
Yeah.
That's what they call it.
Spooky action at a distance.
Einstein called it because he couldn't understand what that was, because it happened at the same time. Now you understand, since we're just one and everything is an illusion, of course it happened at the same time. But he was like, let's call it spooky action at a distance. He couldn't explain what it was. It was just spooky action.
I like that.
Yeah,
I heard that before.
Yeah. So one last question to you.
Yeah.
If you realize, damn, I'm probably in a codependent relationship, what's the, like, what could be the plan in that case? Do you need to drop your, like, do you need to be, how do you say, like confronted, like, okay, I can't, my partner, I'm using her for this and she's using me for that. Do we need to split? Or do we need to separate and go our separate ways in order to find our own stuff we're trying to compensate? Or can we see each other's crutches, like identify them and work with them together, and not having to be so grammatical and separate to find ourselves? What's your take on this?
Good luck.
Thank you. And we're done.
So when people in long-term relationship, and you know, they have children out of the house, or you know, and they just actually recognize, I have no idea who this person is, Yeah, yeah, or they start wondering, just like, yeah, we don't have that much to do with each other, but we just have this kind of arrangement, we just pay the rent and the house and the mortgage.
Teamwork.
And teamwork in a way, and it works well. It kind of works as long there's no conflict, and then you have in many relationships just like fantastic conflict avoidance strategies.
Yeah.
So better don't breathe and better don't make any waves, because
Don't go home.
don't right. But if people are really sincere and serious about themselves, their growth, and where they are with each other, then there's most of the time one part in the relationship. It very rarely happen both at the same time. And if one person is making steps, and you see that in many relationships, many women have done that in the past, they just went into this kind of emotional fluency and just do self-development and personal kind of trauma healing and stuff like that. And then they're just like opening up all this kind of pathways and just recognizing that they do breath work, they do plant medicine, and then they do therapy, and then they do, all kind of stuff. And then they're recognizing, the more they do, this person there at home, I have nothing to do with. I have no idea who this being is. Yeah. And then some relationships, they just get their shit together, and then they actually looking deeper, and then the guy or the other person says in the relationship, okay, I just do my work, but most of the time not because they have the impulse, because they want to save their relationship, because they're as well codependent on it, and they don't know who the fuck they are if this is breaking apart. But if somebody is sincere and just like said, okay, I just need to go on that journey, I need to find that out, because we need to figure out who we are when we're not taking care of our house or children or something else that we built. Who are we as people, and how we actually relate with each other, and what are our values. And this is where the journey can become a really interesting thing. Just like when I work with couples in this regard, who just actually say, well, I have no idea who this person is. I normally kind of opening up the realm, so just like go back to this moment when you met, just like when you were madly in love, where you couldn't get enough of each other, and then on one point you just have chosen to create a family, and but just go back to this internal experience. How did it felt? How was your body? Just like, oh, it was so good. Okay, so is that worthy to get that back?
That's beautiful.
Are you willing to work on yourself to get that back? Because your partner might have evolved, and finding another reality between you that has a similar quality. Would you like that? And if they say no, I'm just done, then okay, so let's create a ritual to bring it to completion. And when they say no, this person is everything in my life, I really want to get that, on the track. It's like, okay, let's do some work. So let's see where we can start. And that's individualized, extremely individualized.
Yeah.
So there is no way. So this is where you start. But
you need to go to you.
Well,
or some other people, but usually you probably need some kind of assistance.
In the best possible way, you come to me.
Yeah, come to Matt.
I don't know, that's true. But just like being dedicated to work on yourself and not being afraid of touching hot irons. And there's one specific thing I said that was my friend and colleague Lorenzo Sternquist from Sexability. We said that in the beginning, it's a little bit like marketing, it's just like we say, we want to feel more pleasure in your life, more essence, more connection, then just like come in and you will definitely feel more. And here comes the disclaimer, you definitely feel more doesn't mean you always feel more pleasure, you feel more everything. That means you feel as well all the shit. And if you're willing to feel all the shit, pleasure will be more as well. So you have some stuff you can relay on, but you need to face and you need to clean it up. That's the key component. And it's not, as you can probably confirm, it's not an always easy way to choose when you want to work, when you see a relationship is kind of.
No, it's so much new territory, and you have your you have your past way of thinking and believing, and you put it on that future. So you're like, oh fuck, I can't take any steps right now. Where am I going? I'm just looking around.
Yeah.
So you have no idea what's waiting for you, but it's actually just ultimate freedom in all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
And if you do it as a couple, it's not guaranteed that you're gonna grow together and say, "Whoa, wow, look at this! This is much better," or "This is awesome." It could be like, "Wow, I do really love you, but I don't think we are in this kind of thing anymore. Like, we might not need each other in this way." And that was maybe 80% of my time with you.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I have a last kind of line of thoughts coming
Yeah.
in, and one of them is that there was an investigation about people when they die, when they look back, what they mostly regretted they haven't done, and one thing is being authentically, unapologetically me, and not being dependent on other people what they think I should do. So finding your own essence in there. And partly I have combined it as well with sexual expression, um, um, being unapologetically you in your way. So who are you as a sexual being, and whatever that means. This is one part, and another part is in a kind of long-term couple investigation to figure out what is the magic secret that they have, that they are still together after 25, 30 years or something like that. And what they all had in common is that they have not put their children in front of their relationship. They always kept their relationship as number one,
Okay.
where the children has been coming from. And this is what in most relationships goes extremely wrong. It's just like, no, when children are born, they are number one.
Yeah.
You know, and
you become some kind of servant that breaks down
yeah, and
after a while.
in the worst case, as a man, you just become another child of this. You know, you become more the sibling of your own children,
Yeah.
because when your ex-lover or your ex-lover in this case, what is now the mother of your children, starts smothering you the way mothering the children, just like, okay, food is done and clothes are washed and everything is clean, and just like, well, this is just like living back home again. Mommy's doing everything.
Wow. Oh, let's not go there anymore. Nope. Those were some good final words.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you for your questions.
Super nice chat.
And the depth that we can.
I love it. I love it. And the laughs. And the cross-wiring of topics.
Yes.
Perfect.
Perfect. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So, hello YouTube, if you're still there.
Hello.
I will switch you off now. Nice meeting you. I have everything on